Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, I've got a full rank guide for you guys. I got masters within one day and I got all the way to number 3 in the world, so I've been pushing a lot. There's a lot of competitive data as well to back this up, so hopefully you guys can get towards masters or as high on the leaderboards as possible through all of this. So it's going to be like a cheat sheet, so it's going to give you the best first picks, the best 6th picks, so you know who to ban, and then just other good brawlers as well, some example drafts along the way. So there's a lot to really dive in. There's a lot of content. Let's jump into it then. So we're going to be jumping into the modifiers first. So be glad to hear that second wind is only available in 1% of your rank games now. I guess that's because of a coding bug. They probably wanted to remove it for a little while, but they couldn't. So second wind, if you actually get the chance to use this, it's literally just tanks, you know, Jackie, Doug, just any beefy tank you're going to be able to win. But again, 1% of your games, you're probably never going to get that modifier, and someone probably will dodge if that modifier is available. Next, we have super bushy. So again, as you've seen in my video yesterday, I don't think the meta really changed too much. There's a couple of brawlers that get a bit better, like Jean, like Sandy, but overall the meta pretty much is the exact same as the classic modifier. Moving into quick fire. So quick fire, the meta changes a lot, and it's all to do with brawlers that have a lot of projectiles. So you can see the tier list on the screen right here. Here are the best brawlers. So for me, I think pretty much everywhere the best 2 brawlers, hands down, are Jean and Leon. They just have a lot of projectiles per attack, but you can just keep spamming out attacks. You can auto aim literally all the time, and you just kill people so easily. I don't know why people underrate Jean. I go Jean everywhere in quickfire. People don't ban it for some reason, and it's just completely insane. Again, it's the brawlers that have a lot of projectiles. So you've also got the likes of Angela and Melody, who have still just got to be strong anyways, even though they've only got 1 projectile. But again, you can see quite a lot of these. I think the S-tier brawlers are going to be able to carry you a lot. It's just dependent on the map and whatever else. So quick fire, just literally spam auto aim once you get in range of someone, and you're going to get infinite ammo. Now we're going to be moving on to the classic modifier and going through each game mode and every map. So starting off with Bounty, Canal, Grande. So here's the best composition, well, not best compositions, the best picks and whatever else on your screen right here. So Canal Grande is back in the rotation, and I've only had a few chances to play this, but typically on Canal Grande it is a lot of like one tank, one kind of chip brawler, maybe a thrower in there. There's not really too many snipers because you can just get pushed back to spawn so easily. If the opponents get into the grass, it's pretty much over if you're a sniper. There's just so much coverage, especially with those unbreakable walls in the middle as well. So best first picks are always going to be Eve, Angelo, because they can just fly over the water. Sandy's insane on this map now since the hypercharge, and there's just so much coverage with the super. Jean's good at just trickling down the opponents, and you want to be making sure again you get like some type of tank. You don't want to pick it early on in the draft, but try and get it towards the end, you know, whether it's a 4th pick, 5th pick, or 6th pick. You can go like Buster, Rosa, Jackie. It's just really hard for the opponents to actually take you down. It'll always require a pinch, and it's not easy to pinch, so you can always get value out of the tanks. In terms of other good picks as well, people tend to forget a lot about Squeak, for example. Squeak can actually be good on Canal Grande. He's not really good elsewhere. Throwers are really good as their last pick here. You know, Willow, for example, Dynamite, Sprout. So typically, if the opponent has last pick, make sure you ban some of those throws, because they can just be so toxic. If you don't have any sort of aggression, a thrower will literally just put you into spawn. So Canal Grande, just be careful making sure that you split your team. So 1 person one side, 2 people the other, and then make sure you at least got one side covered, or else you're pretty screwed on this map. Now moving into Hideout. So these are the best first picks, 6th picks, and everything else on your screen right here. So Hideout is an actual competitive map that the pros play. So during monthly finals, there's a lot of drafts there, so you can learn if you don't know how to play Hideout. But an example draft literally on the graphic right there. So in terms of Hideout, people typically in ranked go for sharpshooters, but sharpshooters are good here. But if you're facing off against good players, you don't actually, like, sharpshooters are going to get ran all over. The main reason being it's so easy to push the opponents back into spawn. So the best first picks, Angelo, Melody everywhere. Jean is absolutely insane, never banned out, so good for early pressure. Max as well. If you're good with Max, you can get a lot of pressure with the super and the hypercharge eventually at the end of the game. And Byron is just so good here, because essentially what people do on Hideout is that you push down the left, try and get into that little L-shaped wall in the grass, and Byron allows you to just push into spawn so easily from a safe spot as well. You know, it's really hard to pinch out a Byron when he's just pocket healing someone from behind. So that's why Byron is just absolutely insane on this map. In terms of late picks you got to worry about, it is definitely the likes of Lily. Lily is really good with with the Cordelia's Shadow Realm gadget. I don't even know what it's called. I think it's called Vanish, but it's just insane because you can get into that grass and just push your opponent's back. It does take a good Lily to make it work, but trust me, Lily's really good. Miko as well. Again, you got to be careful of the throwers, so if the enemies have last pick, make sure you ban in the throwers. But a lot of different options to go with. You can go with snipers if you're looking to carry your teammates, but again, there's a lot of picks that people aren't really expecting, like Kit, for example, like Meg, like Pearl. There's a lot of good options here. And lastly, for Bounty, we have Shooting Star. So here are the best picks and whatever else on your screen right here. So again, Shooting Star, it doesn't really ever change. I've not noticed much difference in the meta whatsoever here. The only difference I've probably seen is that Mr. P is a bit more viable and Max again returning to the meta. Again, actually Jean has of course got a little bit better as well, but overall your first picks are always going to be Angelo, Piper and Nanny. Nanny's still really good on Shooting Star, still being able to counter all of those other sharpshooters. Max, again, as I mentioned, has made a return to the meta. You do need to be a good Max and be able to create pressure, but a good Max can absolutely dominate. In terms of other picks that are pretty safe, you know, Meg, good at countering sharpshooters. RT, just a safe pair of hands. You can't really go wrong with RT, especially on this map. Bell as well. If you set some traps down, the opponents are really screwed down your lane. There's nothing they can do. Gus, super underrated. Always been on Bounty on Knockout, and especially with his Kuka Popper, can get some confirmed clutch kills. Leon is a little bit worse in Shooting Star since a nerf a couple of months ago. It's harder for him to get super, but if he's got a good matchup, you know, if there's a couple of sharpshooters in there, he can definitely start to counter them. So Shooting Star doesn't really change too much. Now moving on to Brawl, starting off with Beach Ball. So here are the best picks on your screen right here. So this is another hard map to judge because it's not in competitive and I've only had a few chances to play it, but with Beach Ball, from what I kind of occur from ladder as well, it's that it can be pretty dangerous when a map opens up, so definitely be careful of that. So in terms of good picks, definitely Sandy can be really good. There are ways to counter Sandy though by limiting the walls, so like using Griff or other kind of roofs as well. For example, you've got some sweet spots with brawlers like that, so be careful of that kind of strategy. But if it's unanswered, you can get a lot of pressure on Beach Ball. In terms of late picks as well, I don't think late picks are actually insanely strong on this map because there's a lot of kind of angles to pinch, and if your team are good, you can always pinch out like a Buster, you can always pinch out a tank. So I won't really say they're absolutely amazing here, but then again, Buster can just sit in that bush down the right hand side, just wait for any opponent to push him and just press gadget and confirm the kill. Charlie's still really good in Brawl Ball, even with a ranged nerf. She just counters tanks so easily. I'd say Nita's good, but does get outranged sometimes, so you got to make sure that you're picking it in the right circumstances. Max has returned to the Brawl Ball meta as well, and in terms of other picks that could be pretty good that are surprising, I think Pearl is a good surprising pick, mainly because it is pretty slow and pretty defensive in the early engagement in Beach Ball. People just tend to kind of sit in the grass, whilst Pearl, she can build up that heat, and then her super as well. You know, wall breaks are just so essential on Beach Ball. So next we have Center Stage. Here are your best picks on your screen right here. So you can see the draft as well. The pros do first pick Shelly a lot. I'm not too sure why though. I mean, I guess the Clay Pigeons is really good in the grass, and Shelly can easily score with her super, and she just counters tanks so easily. Another pick which I just seem to struggle against all of the time is Buster. If the opponent picks a Buster, I know I'm screwed because typically they're really good. You know, the super can literally block a lane so easily, push you up the map, and if you get complete grass control, it's literally over for the other team. So I'd always like to try and get like a wall break in, mainly because if you get a few walls broken towards the enemy goal, you can score easily. It's pretty hard to score on Center Stage unless of course you literally kill the entire team. In terms of other picks as well, which can be pretty toxic, I think in the lower elo, Rico can be absolutely insane. Use vision gear and the reload gear on him, and you can just zone out a lane so easily. Another underrated pick is Surge. Surge with his speed gear is just so good on a speedy map right now. I think since the meta's kind of evolved, Surge just got even better. Another brawler that might be surprising is the likes of Nita, for example. A good Nita can just easily push up and just cycle bears so quickly. So the Center Stage is all about the grass control, making sure that you've always got someone scouting the left, someone scouting the right, and make sure to equip those vision gears. And lastly for Brawl, we have Sneaky Fields. So here are the best picks on your screen right here. So the return of Sneaky Fields, it's a pretty toxic map in terms of like control. If you don't get the mid control, you're pretty screwed. Again, if there's a bunch of tanks in there, it's hard to pinch them out. So best picks on the screen are going to be Nita, Sandy and Max. That combination is just so deadly. Sandy can just farm super so easily in the mid, so can Nita, and then their hyper charges are just so overwhelming and so fast to charge through. Same with Max as well. Again, making sure that you've got the vision gear on as many brawlers as possible. Probably not the best on like Nita and Sandy, but you know, if you're using a Max, for example, if you're using a Jean, if you're using a Rico, something like that, that definitely can be really good. In terms of late picks here, I don't even think that late picks are that scary because people just draft tanks earlier on anyway. Like if you've got 3rd pick, 4th pick, 5th pick, people just go like Rosa, Buster, BB, Jackie. Like there's a lot of good tanks on this map. Again, another surprising pick is Surge. Surge is so good right now in the meta on a grassy map. You can absolutely carry with Surge here. So good. Make sure to abuse that as much as possible because people are only just figuring that out. Again, other picks that you might be unaware of, you know, Griff could be a good counter. You can break open the walls. But again, it's just sneaky fields. It's all about trying to pinch, trying to get inside of the grass, and then making sure that you can take advantage. As soon as a couple of people die, you should be able to score easily on this map. So now moving on to gem grab. Start off with gem 4. So they're the best picks on your screen right here. So the return of gem 4. I really like this map because it's just a lot of 1v1 engagements. You got the 1v1 in mid, you've got the 1v1 in lanes trying to be sneaky, and of course trying to not die in the middle because you can get flanked a lot on gem 4. So you can see the best picks on your screen right here. Still Angelo, Melody. Max is really good here because you got the vision gear and just overall really solid lane. In terms of really good mid brawlers as well, well, not gem carrying, but just really good at getting in those unbreakable walls positions, is Sandy and Nita. The wall peeking, it's just really hard to pinch them out, and again their supers can just be charged so quickly. In terms of other picks as well, which can be really good for carrying against those randoms, is Rico, for example. With their vision gear, it's just so easy to keep control of a certain lane. Can get countered at a higher elo, but again, that carry pick definitely is what you're looking for. Buster, again, if you can just sit in the middle, Buster is so hard to pinch out, and his gadget confirms the kill every single time, and a good Buster will just absolutely wreck everyone. Ems can be pretty good in the pocket as well. Down the lane, you can go like an Amber, go like a Ruffs, you can go a Leon as well. Still pretty good on Gem 4, especially with the gadget. Again, Surge can be pretty good. The only problem is if they're using a couple of range units, can be pretty hard to get your level. But again, a good Surge can absolutely carry. So with Gem 4, just making sure, as I said, making sure that you're always kind of expecting the worst, because at any given time, there can be an opponent literally behind you flanking you. So always be aware of what's around you. So next we have Hard Rock Mine. Here are your best picks on your screen right here. So the same old Hard Rock Mine did actually get removed from rotation last season, which is quite shocking because it's normally always in a rotation. But again, the same type of meta. So the big changes here are the likes of Sandy, the likes of Max and Jean returned into the Hard Rock Mine meta. Rico's always a safe pick and he's just the best lane brawler on this map. Max is a really good mid, a little bit more of a high skill cap. You can go with other mid brawlers if you're not really comfortable on Max, just like Angelo, Jean, Bell, 8-Bit Piper. There's a lot of mid picks here, so I say you probably could leave mid towards the end of the draft. And in terms of last picks, then there's a couple of toxic brawlers which I definitely would keep your eye on, like Sprout, for example. He can counter a lot of brawlers down the lane. Rosa as well, the grass can be pretty annoying to deal with, and Mr. P can be great counter, you know, if the opponents pick like, I don't know, Stu and 8-Bit, for example, because that's a good synergy. Mr. P is just really good at destroying 8-Bit's turret, for example. In terms of other picks as well, which might surprise you, I think Nita is a really good pick on Hard Rock Mine. Not really early on because a good team can counter Nita, but definitely really good, especially if you get in and behind their grass. Like, she can be scary good. In terms of other picks as well, you got the likes of Charlie, who's still really good, Ruffs, who's still really good. It's just the same old Hard Rock Mine brawlers, to be honest. I feel like there's not really a weight in first pick and last pick. I just think there's a lot of good consistent picks. And lastly, for Gem Grab, we have last stop, the return of it again. So you can see the best picks on your screen right here. So the same old best picks is literally the same as pretty much all the other Gem Grab. You got the likes of Leon's probably a bit better just because it's a bit more open. Leon's best game mode right now probably is Gem Grab. He's starting to fall off in other categories, but Gem Grab, he's so good, mainly because you can give the gadget to the mid, and then you can just wreak havoc on the enemy mid as well once you get your hypercharge super. In terms of late picks, again, I wouldn't really be worried about late picks too often, mainly because a lot of the time when you're drafting, you're going to make sure that you're being able to counter those tankier last picks. So normally you want to pick like a Charlie, maybe an Amber, Otis down the lane, Pearl, something like that that can deal heavy damage to a tank. And you know, tanks aren't going to be like crazy strong on last stop. In terms of mid brawlers, which I really enjoy in this map, 8-bit. 8-bit is a solid mid, especially with the nerfs to Piper and Nanny. 8-bit's a little bit safer now, if you get what I mean. Doesn't get destroyed by them so quickly. Buster, again, another solid pick. He's so underrated in the meta. You can never really go wrong with a Buster. I'll say don't early pick like Nanny and Piper, for example. That's a common mistake I see on this map. Those brawlers in particular are countered a little bit easier. They're normally a counter pick to other mids, which the opponent might go. In terms of other surprising picks as well, you know, Tara could be a good late pick overall. The same with Gale as well, because his whole attack just literally covers the entire grass. So those are going to be your best picks on last stop. So now moving into Heist, started off with Hot Potato. Here are your best picks on a screen right here. So Hot Potato, Heist, it's always been a base race map, and now with Hypercharge it's just even more crazier. So in terms of brawlers which I always look to carry with, the likes of Rico, the likes of Chuck, the likes of Colette, they're always brawlers which I like to carry with for sure. In terms of late picks, again, I typically just ban the annoying throwers. So Dynamite and Barley, just get them straight out, because if you don't have adequate counters, they'll just absolutely destroy you. In terms of picks that people underrate, I think a really underrated pick is Ruffs for sure. Main reason being, it just takes 2 supers to break open the mid, and that can allow you to counter so many of the tanks that people run. A lot of people just love running like BB, Primo. My biggest advice in Hot Potato, try not leave yourself with too many defensive brawlers. Maybe go with like 1 defensive brawler, but try and go aggressive brawlers yourself. Make sure that they're constantly trying to pinch you out, because if you can just keep getting the pressure, you're going to eventually win. That's always the name of the game in Heist. Other brawlers which again are really underrated are the likes of, I would say, Ems, because Ems can sneak around in the grass, and especially if it's a quick fire modifier, you can just absolutely destroy that Heist safe. So it's going to be your best brawlers on Hot Potato. Next up we have Kaboom Canyon. Here the best picks on your screen right here. So Kaboom Canyon is I would say the same kind of meta that it kind of left on before, of course, with the exception of Angelo and Melody just running absolutely everywhere. Chuck is still going to be really good on this map. The way you play it is that you want to make sure that you're trying to go down the left hand side, trying to sneak in around there. People again just kind of forget about Chuck a lot, but he is one of the best Heist brawlers still for sure. So people typically ban Angelo Melody, so you can easily get like an Eve. Eve is just really good again because you can float around on the water, just pinch out a lot. So the way I recommend you drafting is again making sure that you've got 1 brawler that's good at kind of defending and pinching. So whether that's like an Eve, whether that's like an Amber, whether that's a Belle, something like that. I like to typically go those brawlers because then I could just let my randoms just be brain dead and just go for the high safe. In terms of brawlers that deal big damage, you want to be making sure that you're getting other likes of like the underrated ones. Bonnie, for example, is just so underrated right now in Heist. She was like never picked in the monthly finals, but so good at just getting, like, you can get in the grass, of course, and then just super straight onto the safe, and that's guaranteed damage. You can get in behind enemy lines so easily. In terms of brawlers that are overrated here, I think Piper is a little bit underrated, mainly because you can pressure her quite easily if you've got the right composition and the right brawlers. Other brawlers that are good, you know, Brock, of course, can never really go wrong with that. 8-bit, again, often overlooked. And Jesse, if you get in the grass, you can get so much pressure and get some good turrets. Late picks are never a problem. The only late pick brawler you've got to worry about is Cole. Other than that, it's just pretty plain sailing. And lastly, for Heist, we have Safe Zone. So it's another returning map, and the pros get to draft on this pretty regularly, so you get to see the best draft on your screen right here. So in terms of first picks, it's always going to be the same in Heist. It's always going to be Angelo, Melody, and Chuck. Those are always going to be some of the best Heist brawlers. Colt is often overlooked, and he's easily one of the best brawlers on this map. Main reason being, you can just go down the left hand side and just focus on the safe. You've got a hypercharge as well that can just get you so much damage. Nanny is still pretty good on Safe Zone because you've got the teleport gadget. Same in Kaboom Canyon as well. You know, I wouldn't really pick it early on in the draft, but it's still going to get you a lot of pressure. You know, 4 TPs behind enemy lines is always going to be good for pressure. You always want good pressure brawlers. In terms of good options as well that might be underrated, again, Amber is so underrated. A little bit harder to play, but she's just so good at pinching, so good at getting control with her super. You know, Brock is pretty good as long as the opponents have picked like something else that's kind of squishy, like another sniper. You can always get value out of Brock. In terms of good strategies as well, Bonnie, really underrated. I always seem to have a really high win rate with Bonnie. You can go Charlie, for example, if the opponents go like a big high HP brawler. I mean, Charlie's actually just good against a lot of sharpshooters still on this map. She's just really good for pressure with the Spider's gadget. In terms of late picks to worry about, there's definitely quite a few late picks to worry about on this map. Sprout, Grom, Buzz, Carl, those are the brawlers that can be a big problem late on. So now moving on to Hot Zone, starting off with Dueling Beetles. Here are your best picks on your screen right here, and we've got a pro draft as well to go through. So in terms of the best picks, I think Byron is absolutely insane right now in the meta overall, but really good on this map in particular. Main reason being is just because he can just command the middle so easily. He can sit in that mid grass and he can just shoot down the left. He can heal his opponents on the zone, teammates on the zone. There's just a lot that he can do, which people underrate. In terms of another underrated pick is Pam. Main reason being is she does have her counters, but once you get that super behind that unbreakable wall, you can just sit in it and you just won't die. You've got the mythic gear on top of that to get even more healing, and she's just such a hard kill that it just allows you to get so much zone time in the middle. In terms of other good picks, well, Stu will always be good. Lily, the new brawler in the game, is really good in Hot Zone. Main reason being is you pop your Vanish gadget when you're in the furthest bush towards the middle, and then you can just run it into the opponent's grass, and it creates so much pressure. And then with your first gadget, making sure that you get a super, and then she can just one shot. Well, she can super then one shot so many meta Dueling Beetles brawlers. It's just so easy to play. I got a rank 35 so easily on this map. Super underrated. In terms of brawlers that I think are often very overlooked, are the likes of Gus, Poco, Gray. You can get some really good synergies with tanks still. Those are really overlooked brawlers in this Dueling Beetles meta. So with the Hot Zone rotation, we have Open Business. Here are the best brawlers on your screen right here. So I only got the chance to play it a couple of times. I think this map is very last pick heavy. Main reason being, you can just see so many walls in the middle, right? So if you get last pick, make sure you go like Dynamite, Barley, Willow, Mr. P. Like, there's just so many tanks or throwers that last pick definitely is the best one to have. So in terms of best picks overall, then I think again Lily on Hot Zone is just so good for pressure, getting in behind enemy lines. Super underrated. Jesse's just really good in Hot Zone in general, always has been, with a hypercharge buff. Same with Sandy as well. You're gonna be able to cycle so easily. There's just so many walls where you can just sit behind, wall peek, get your super pretty easily. Other good options as well. Cordelius is still really good in the meta, as you've probably seen from all the other picks. Poco again in Hot Zone, super underrated. Other options that you may not be aware of is the likes of Ems. Again, there's a lot of walls, and she's a pretty good counter to a lot of the meta brawlers in Hot Zone right now, with the likes of Pam and Buster, so Ems can be pretty good there. You've got Larry and Laurie as well. You know, if you're kind of scared of any aggro brawlers but you still want to go thrower, Larry and Laurie still pretty decent in that category. In terms of good ways to counter the opposition as well, you've got Stu with the rule break. You know, you can either use the speed zone gadget, or if the opponents go like a tank or a thrower, you can switch to breakthrough and break open the walls. Same reason why I really like Griff, because he's underrated in Hot Zone, but then you can just use gadget to break open a lot of key areas. So those are the best picks on the Open Business. And lastly, for Hot Zone, we have Parallel Plays. Here are the best picks on your screen right here. So Parallel Plays is a really hard map to play with randoms. It takes a lot of coordination and a lot of pinching. So the strategy with Parallel Plays is typically, well, you just send one person on the left lane, making sure you're trying to scout that grass and not allow them to go on. You've got a mid brawler, which typically you've got to be shooting down the left hand side, trying to work with the person on the left zone to make sure that no one is getting onto that zone. Again, always pinching, always trying to make sure that they're not getting behind that unbreakable wall. And then the right zone player is just constantly trying to get pressure, and then once the mid brawler hopefully has pinched out the left, he can then help the right person get onto the zone. So the reason why I've just gone through that strategy is because people don't understand how Parallel Plays works, but that's how it works, just pinching. That's the name of the game. The key mechanic and Brawl stuff that people forget about. So in terms of best brawlers then, you know, Jesse's just insane on Hot Zone in general. If you can use Jesse left lane or mid, once you get a turret, you can just advance all the map really easily. There's just so many walls where you get a lot of value out of a turret. Nita is just really good because, again, you can just sit behind an unbreakable wall. You can always pinch out. Your bear's always going to help you out. Cordelius is insane because you've got the unbreakable walls where you can just sit behind, and then once you get super, if you pop super and then use your jump gadget at the same time, you can jump whilst in the shadow realm and take down brawlers so easily. Good underrated picks as well. Surge is just insane on this map. I don't know what it is with him. He's just absolutely crazy. easily. Same with Stu as well. Byron is so good in the middle. If you're looking for good mid brawlers, you want to go with like Byron. You want to go with good brawlers that can pinch, like Belle, even Charlie, Amber, for example. Late picks as well are dangerous, because if you can get a good late pick brawler to just run down the right hand lane, you know, for example, like Sam, BB, Carl, for example, if they haven't got a tank counter, it's just going to be so free for you to get on that right zone. So yeah, that's parallel plays. Moving into the final game mode, we have Knockout jumping into Flare and Phoenix. So the return of it is pretty much the exact same meta as Goldarm Gulch. So I think you've seen the exact same cheat sheet. So in terms of the meta overall, then again, Angelo Melody is still going to be the best. Gene is just so underrated in Knockout, about just everywhere right now, and he's pretty much a free pick. The only brawlers you're going to be careful of facing off against are brawlers like Meg, or just any brawler with a gadget that can tank pull, but he's always super valuable for your team, especially with magic puffs. In terms of this map as well, I think snipers are pretty overrated. I mean, they're decent, but you don't want to go multiple snipers. Main reason being is because the opponents could just draft like a Buster or a Max or a Thrower, and you're pretty screwed. You're just going to get pushed back all of the time. So I wouldn't advise going 2 snipers on this map in particular. In terms of good late picks as well, Throwers are so dangerous. So if the opponents have a last pick, make sure you're just banning Throwers. I always ban Sprout, Tick, because they're just so annoying and really toxic to deal with, especially towards the end engagements. Brawlers that are super underrated, Kit is so underrated. He he free shots so many of the meta brawlers, and then of course, because he's got that thrower aspect to him as well, he can just create a lot of pressure with the healing on top of that. Other good underrated brawlers, again, the likes of Gus, super underrated on this map. So next up we have Goldarm Gulch. So I think you see the exact same picks on this map. I do this every single time these two maps are in the rotation, because I just think it's the exact similar meta. It just plays out a little bit differently, but with Goldarm Gulch, essentially what you want to be doing, most people just go all left lane and just pinch out eventually. Typically the brawlers that are really annoying, again, are the throwers. You know, if the opponents get last pick, Sprout or Tick, it's just so annoying to pinch out, because it's just so easy to push up to those mid walls and just keep them in the spawn. And then of course when the gas closes in, it's just so easy for throwers to dominate like that. In terms of picks that I always tend to go on this map, again, Gene, just being able to scout the grass so easily. Brock can be pretty good to break open key walls, but again, you've got to be careful of those snipers. Snipers are actually a lot better on this map in particular, especially like Piper, because you can break open key areas with your super on this map and get some good snipes. But with Goldarm Gulch, it's all about really the late engagements, making sure that you're not just throwing away deaths early on. There can be a few sneaky strategies. Sometimes people like to sneak down the left, sneak down the right. So don't try and be that guy too often, because more often than not, you'll just die early on in the round. But at the same time, make sure you're always checking the left bush, just in case there's like a Rico or someone sneaky in there. Moving on to the final map, we have a New Horizons. So this was in the rotation last season, but here are the best picks on your screen right here. So a New Horizon, there's definitely a lot of cheesy strategies. What I've kind of noticed with the meta evolving is there's a lot more wall breakers. Main reason being is because there's so much cheese. If you can get like Gene, Buster in your composition, it's pretty much over for the opponents, because you can just sit behind the walls. So again, late picks, throwers are insane as a late pick, or just a pick in general. So whenever you're drafting, just take all factors into consideration. Assassins, you've got to take into consideration throwers. So for me, always make sure you've got a 1 wall break on your team, or at least something that can go a bit aggressive. So whether that's like a Brock, whether that's a Piper, or if it's something aggressive, whether that's like a Meg, whether that's a Melody, whether that's a Carl, something like that. And then you want to go a thrower yourself even, so whether that's a Mr. P who can essentially throw over walls, whether that's a Sprout. So there's a lot to really consider in the New Horizons draft. Again, it's just about your kind of mid engagements, well, your lane engagements as well. You're always typically just fighting your 1v1 scenarios, and it's all about trying to make sure that you're pushing them all the way back. If you can get them all the way back to that last set of walls, it's so easy to get kills, because there's just short spaces to get out of, and it's just really easy just to tap them. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. This took so long to do, literally over 12 hours, and then the gameplay on top of that, which I was pushing yesterday for like 12 hours, so probably like 24 hours worth of content in this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.